morning seems darker, less lively, and you lose your motivation to get out of bed.
If you struggle with depression, you're not alone. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, and no matter the time of year, it may affect your behavioral or physical ability to live a happy life.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, we understand what you're going through, and we're here to help. Our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round. We work every day to eliminate stigma, combat mental illness and substance use disorders, and advance mental wellness.
If you or someone you love needs help, you are not alone. Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo.
All right, here we go. Living for the people. This is L Nation here. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for the day and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, our program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're normally joined by Norma Carter, who's our in-studio audience of one, but he's out in the world collecting barrels of money again. Anytime we don't see him, I mean, that's what he's doing. He's out to get money. And we're here with Willie H., who is our citizen of the 21st century, who really understands all of this electronic technology stuff. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. You can call in live, 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104.
And, of course, you know we wouldn't be able to live stream this program if we didn't have Willie here to do this for us. If you were waiting on me, you'd be looking for smoke signals coming from a wet rag. So it's got to get done that way. I wanted to take a second and talk about what happened to the so-called invasion. You might be saying, what invasion are you talking about?
What invasion are you talking about?
Remember the invasion of all these immigrants that were going to come flooding into the United States because of the expiration of the authority to expel people under Title 42? You know, the Republicans have worked out something, you know, with the courts where they used Title 42 to get rid of people who hadn't been tested negative for COVID-19. They didn't even wait for you to get tested. If you couldn't prove you had been tested, they just put you back on a bus and sent you back across the border to Mexico. So that was their way. That was the Trump administration's way of fast-tracking getting people out of the country who had migrated into the country illegally, you know, through the in between the ports of entry. I went to an article written by John Kennedy in the Tallahassee Democrat. It says that DeSantis paid something in the area of $615,000 in Florida taxpayer money to relocate some 50 Venezuelan migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. I'm hoping that you're embracing logic in your mind and you're saying, Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida. He took 50 Venezuelans that were physically in Texas and he transported them to Martha's Vineyard up in the New York area or, you know, Massachusetts and used Florida taxpayer money to do it. Does that make sense?
Wow.
These people had never been Florida residents. They had never set foot inside of Florida, didn't know a single person in Florida. Why would he take Florida money and go all the way to Texas and snatch people off the street in Texas and take them to someplace in Massachusetts? Why would you do that, number one? And number two, whose money are you using to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Who said that was okay?
Right.
So the payment was from the Florida Department of Transportation, which oversees a program that DeSantis got his legislature to approve, a $12 million program, but it's supposed to relocate, quote, unauthorized aliens from the state of Florida. Now, it appears that Floridians paid, this is just crazy, that Floridians paid something in the area of $12,300 for each one of these refugees to be transported, be picked up and transported from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. Now, wouldn't it have just made more sense to just say, well, come on over here, refugees, here's $10,000 apiece, and you all find your own way, someplace else to a sanctuary city, in the United States.
Martha Vineyard,
that's a sort of a upscale part of outside of Boston in Massachusetts. That's where all of the fat cats,
Wow.
a lot of your family and friends, live in, Martha's Vineyard. The ones that make.
I have no clue.
The ones that make $20 million a year.
They don't make that.
You don't get that?
No.
You don't have any friends like that?
Oh, they have probably one or two relatives that make over $1 million. So.
Well, we know you got. We know you empathize with them anyway. So DeSantis claims that he's acting in compliance with Florida's immigration relocation program law. But the funding out of Florida's State Department of Transportation is supposedly to relocate unauthorized aliens from the state. Florida's immigration program is supposedly aims to interdict human smugglers, traffickers, or other criminal aliens found within the state of Florida, as well as prevent illegal aliens at the southern border from entering Florida. But these aren't people that were entering Florida. These are people that were entering Texas. Why would DeSantis be able to take Florida state money and use it for something that is not covered by the state law?
I don't know. This sounds like something underhanded. Somebody's making money from this.
Well, definitely if it's underhanded, Donald Trump had to have something to do with it, right? Because that's required. That's a standard, right?
Prerequisite
exactly.
For being part of his crew.
But what's interesting to me is that there's no outcry about this obvious abuse of power being engaged in by DeSantis and his colleagues in the Florida state legislature. When you heard about this on the media, they just reported it. Ron DeSantis' program took X number of illegal immigrants, or not even illegal. Some of these people were legal residents or people that had entered the United States legally.
Wow.
And he just put them on a bus or on a plane or whatever form of transportation and took them to what he called sanctuary cities.
I'd like to know where exactly they ended up, like what kind of housing or that they ended up.
Well, that was the other interesting thing, because when he sent these people to Martha's Vineyard or to New York City or to San Francisco, these so-called...
so it's several places.
Yeah, these sanctuary cities and whatnot. There's no record of what the housing accommodations were for those people after they were relocated to these so-called sanctuary cities. So we don't know the answer to that question. You would think that somebody would be accountable for that, but not if you're Ron DeSantis and you're a conservative, what do they call it? To beat the libs or something like that. I can't even remember their little slogan. But my point is, where's the media on this? Why is the media not asking where's the money coming from for Ron DeSantis to be snatching people from other states and taking them from other states and transporting them to a separate state?
Right. I'm sure there's somebody, some investigator probably trying to dig out, but they're probably being hushed or whatever, abused or whatever.
Or, whoever owns their media just puts a foot on it and said, no, we're not going to report on that.
Right. That's what I mean.
That would inform the American people about truth.
What I mean.
We can't do that. Florida's authorizing legislation states that the program aims to protect Florida from the detrimental effects of migration, including increased crime, diminished economic opportunities, and wages for American workers, and burdens on the education and healthcare systems in Florida.
I can understand that aspect because most of the immigrants, when they first come, they do hit Florida, correct?
No.
No, they don't hit Florida first?
Remember, you have to swim to get to Florida.
So
Florida doesn't have a border with Mexico.
So in the United States, when those people come from what state or city do they hit first?
Well, it depends on where you're coming from. If you're walking up from Guatemala or Ecuador or Panama or Colombia or Costa Rica, or, if you're walking up from those places, walking through Mexico, 2,000 miles through Mexico to get to the southern border of the United States, you're going to end up either in Texas or in California or in New Mexico or in Arizona.
Okay, gotcha.
But you wouldn't come anywhere near Florida.
Gotcha. So there's something else.
Ron DeSantis is just making this up. He's just grandstanding, right? But what I'm trying to get to is he's grandstanding at the expense of Florida taxpayers, and he's grandstanding doing something that there's no legal authorization for him to do.
Right.
Somebody should be talking about this.
Yeah.
But
and nobody
that
is.
doesn't appear to be the case, right?
Right.
On this issue of these illegal immigrants, and he claims increased crime, diminished economic opportunities for Floridians, reduce wages for American workers, and put burdens on the education and healthcare systems. Numerous independent studies have found that immigration boosts the economy of the United States. Undocumented immigrants are also far less likely to break the law than native-born citizens. Krish Omara Vinaraja, who's the head of the Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, she says, "Let's be clear," quoting her, "let's be clear. This relocation program isn't rooted in humanitarian concern. It's about grandstanding and grabbing headlines by any means necessary." That's what this is really all about.
Okay.
Now, despite the constant lying by the congressional Republicans, I know you be in the media, you're the 21st century giant. Why aren't you talking about these people lying? Lying constantly. The congressional Republicans claiming that illegal immigrant crossings into the United States, despite what they're saying, illegal immigrant crossings into the United States has remained significantly down since the expiration of Title 42. So Title 42 was the Trump way of getting rid of as many of the illegal immigrants as possible by saying that they hadn't cleared the COVID-19 protocol, returning those people back to Mexico. The court said that you can't do this anymore. So as of May 11th of this year, you couldn't enforce Title 42 to get rid of illegal immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
So you would think, based on what the media had been saying for weeks running up to May 11th, oh, it's going to be terrible. When Title 42 expires, there's going to be these tens of thousands of immigrants coming across the border. It's going to be an invasion. Oh my gosh, it's going to be terrible. So let's look at something called truth. Truth is a monster. Anna Giaratelli, writing in the Washington Examiner, a conservative newspaper, she reports that illegal immigrant arrests dropped 44% between the 6 weeks leading up to May 11th, when the policy expired, and the 6 weeks after. In other words, if you took the average illegal immigrant apprehensions in the 6 week period leading up to May 11th, and then looked at the same statistic, but for the 6 weeks after May 11th, what you find is that after the Title 42 expiration occurred, illegal immigration actually dropped by 44%, almost by half over that time period. When have you heard this in the media?
You haven't heard it.
Have you heard this on the nightly news?
And they make it sound like there's lots of people coming in too. That's what they make it.
Here's what they say. You have Ted Cruz, who claims that oh, the southern border is facing an invasion. It's never been remotely this bad. How can that be true if the number of people being interdicted at the borders has fallen by almost half?
Wow.
How can that be it's never been that bad?
Mm.
Why wouldn't it be it's never been that good? Because that's what it's been over the past several months,
Wow.
right? So since the end of Title 42, border crossings had stabilized at around 4,000 border crossings a day, which would put June of this year around the same level of illegal crossings that were taking place in February of 2021, over 2 years ago. And that's the lowest month during Biden's presidency. The Border Patrol apprehended approximately 160,000 people in the 6 weeks since May 12th. Agents have averaged 13,000 to 29,000 arrests each week since that time. Border Patrol recorded approximately 285,000 arrests in the 6 weeks leading up to May 11th, compared to the 160,000 in the 6 weeks after May 11th. Y'all following that?
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about a significant drop from 285,000 arrests over the 6 weeks prior to May 11th to 160,000 arrests in the 6 week period after. So clearly something happened after the expiration of Title 42. What happened was the Biden administration created other policies. They created other initiatives, and they put them in play, and the initiatives worked. So instead of having the media reporting that the Biden initiatives worked, the media keeps reporting, well, we have this immigration problem, and there's still people coming across the southern border, and they keep presenting it as if it's a worsening problem when the problem has become half as worse as it was before.
Right.
Despite the continued downturn in arrests, some Republican lawmakers said that the numbers have been manipulated to appear lower than they are, and that the United States still faces a crisis at the border, even at the new lower levels. Now, of course, what this means is they've been counting illegal crossings or apprehensions at the border during the Trump administration the same way that they're doing it under the Biden. The Biden administration inherited the counting system from the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
The Trump administration inherited the counting system from the Obama administration. The Obama inherited the counting system from the last Bush administration. They're just using the same system to count how many apprehensions of illegal border crossers there are day to day, week to week, month to month.
Mm-hmm.
But when the numbers start showing that Biden's policies are working significantly better than the policies prior to Biden's administration, they change the numbers. Oh, well, there must be something wrong with the numbers. If Biden's doing better, that means you're cheating. You're lying about the numbers. That's what's going on here,
Gotcha.
going on right now. So in other words, even using the same yardstick being used during the Trump administration, Biden simply cannot do enough to satisfy these media and conservative critics of the Biden administration. People wonder why Biden's numbers favorability numbers are so low. They're low because you keep reporting the great numbers of the Biden administration as if they're not great numbers. When we see that the unemployment rate had fallen to 3.6, 3.7%, you say, well, that's the lowest it's been since, a little bit after World War II. But, there's a lot of potential unemployment on the horizon because there's a recession coming. They've been telling you this for the last year. There's a recession coming. And that's going to cause a lot more unemployment. So even though they report that unemployment is the lowest that it's been in the last 60 or 70 years, they report it in the context of there's a recession coming and it's going to be terrible next week.
They forecast it with gloom and doom in the future.
Right. Inflation. So I get that, inflation occurred if you're doing it year over year. But remember, we talked about this. We had extraordinary pressures on prices going on a year and a half ago. Remember, we had all of those 60 or 70 great big boats that are like as big as 4 or 5 city blocks that were parked outside of the port of Los Angeles because they couldn't get the stuff off of the boats onto the shoreline.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right? Because, and it wasn't just that the workers were on strike, it's that the workers were sick. You know, everybody that got sick with COVID-19 had to stay home.
Right.
Well, you can't unload the ships if you're at home.
Right.
Right. So those ships wound up just sitting in the ports. You had ships that were coming from China, that were coming from India, coming from other countries with goods destined for America, but the ships couldn't get loaded because the people in those countries who would normally be the longshoremen that would load these ships, they were sick.
Right.
Okay, we're not even talking about people trying to abuse you by, you know, squeezing you with new union contracts. We're talking about people who were just sick.
Right.
You know, people and their families were sick, you know, and so on. So supply chains, you know, got messed up. There were a lot of other issues that affected, you know, supply chains that made it difficult to get products either manufactured or get the products from where they were manufactured to the docks in the United States, and then to get them off the docks in the United States and get them distributed inside the United States. We didn't have enough truck drivers, you know, to be able to get the stuff off of the boats, off of the docks, and distributed, you know, to Target and Walmart and whatever, you know, all around the country. That was the reality. So when you compare that time period to today, most of those supply chain issues have been addressed. You know, the chip manufacturers are manufacturing, you know, microchips again. The semiconductor manufacturers are manufacturing, semiconductors, you know, are manufacturing them at the same levels that they were before the pandemic. So the pressures that was causing a shortage of supply in relation to demand, those pressures have eased.
Right.
As a result of that, prices have eased. So now you see inflation year over year at around 4%, probably be a little bit less than that when they do June's numbers. It'd probably be more like 3.9 or 3.8%. So that's still high in terms of what you want, but it's not like prices are rising right now, you know, at a rapid rate. Prices have stabilized, and some prices have actually fallen. Price of gasoline, for example, is $1 less today than it was a year ago, you know, and so on, right? So it's important that we understand these contexts. When Biden's border enforcement policies took over in place of Title 42, the nation saw a 44% decrease in illegal crossings. In spite of Ted Cruz claiming that we're facing an invasion and that it's never been remotely this bad. Homeland Security Committee Chairperson, Republican Mark Green, has also been critical of the Department of Homeland Security, and he's accusing, just check this out. This is the chair, Republican chair of the Homeland Security Committee. He's accusing Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of the Homeland Security Department. He's accusing him of encouraging immigrants not to illegally enter the United States, but to go to ports of entry to meet with customs officials. Why would that be a bad thing? Isn't it what you have been claiming for the past several years, that you want illegal immigrants to not immigrate into the country illegally? Isn't it what you've been saying, that you want people to go to the ports of entry of the United States and make themselves present themselves at the port of entry so that they could be tracked, they could get appointments for their hearings on their asylum requests and so on? Isn't that the policy of the United States?
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But Mark Green, Republican chair of the House Homeland Security Committee, is criticizing the Department of Homeland Security for doing what the Department of Homeland Security is supposed to do. Although surrendering at ports to seek asylum is what Department of Homeland Security leaders in the Trump administration had called for immigrants to do, Green is now arguing that the Biden administration is paroling immigrants who would otherwise have crossed illegally. In other words, if people who were previously illegally crossing into the United States went to a legal port of entry, got an appointment for a hearing on their asylum request, and then were allowed to stay in the United States until their hearing, he's saying that's paroling those people, and that's in violation, according to him, that's in violation of what does he refer to as? He had a number of it was in violation of the Immigration and Naturalization Act, and so on. That just doesn't make an ounce of sense. You're supposed to get people to immigrate through the ports of entry. You're supposed to get them to register. You're supposed to help them get an appointment on their asylum request. That's why they came here, was to apply for asylum. Mm-hmm. So you're supposed to do that. Green is saying that that's somehow an evil thing to do what you're supposed to do. But that is true under the Republican administration. If you do what you're supposed to do, by definition, you're doing something illegal. Immigrants who obtain appointments at ports may be paroled into the country, but fewer than, well, let me give you the numbers. Of the 272,000 people encountered nationwide by federal police in May of this year, 170,000 of those 272,000 were people that attempted to enter the country illegally between the ports of entry, and 102,000 of those 272,000 went to a port of entry. Within that 102,000, there were 30,000 people who had actually obtained appointments with customs officers. So even if all 30,000 of those people wound up entering the country and staying in the country, that still wouldn't make illegal entries more than 200,000 over that month, which would be lower than any of the previous 7 months of the Biden administration. So no matter which way you slice this thing, the Biden administration has gotten the illegal immigration problem not completely under control, but significantly in better shape than it was at any time, including the Trump administration. So I was going to talk a little bit. I think I'll wait a little bit to talk. Maybe I will talk a little bit about your cousin, Ron DeSantis, since we were talking about Florida. Ron DeSantis tries to claim that he's the education governor, right? That, well, many people call Ron DeSantis Donald Trump with brains. So the so-called smarter Trump has placed supposedly an emphasis on the importance of education. After all, he has a degree from Harvard and has another degree from Yale. But unlike many politicians who boast about their education initiatives, DeSantis doesn't always tout his success in raising test scores of Florida students, which is the most common way that governors or departments of education measure themselves. Instead, DeSantis is pushing his vow to rid the education system of so-called woke ideology that he claims pervades the education system. But he does that, according to Senator Chris Murphy. He says that DeSantis does this because he can't claim any legitimate educational achievements under his administration. DeSantis measures his effect by what's called the Savannah-La-Rova yardstick, a sort of bonfires of the vanities in which DeSantis burns anything that expands children's education. And so Murphy says that the so-called Florida education governor, he has a ranking that shows that Florida has the lowest math score in the United States at 50 points below the national benchmark for math proficiency. Wow. Other sources don't have Florida last on their list, but in this ranking system, only West Virginia, Oklahoma, Idaho, and Rhode Island scored lower than Florida on the overall scholastic achievement test, the SAT test. And the Tampa Bay Times reported in 2000 or this year, Florida has the worst learning rate in the country. It says, this is quoting the Tampa Bay Times, the size of Florida's regression is dramatic and growing, especially in math. Florida's overall average National Assessment of Educational Progress state ranking regression between 4th and 8th grade since 2003 is 17 spots in math and 18 spots in reading. But since 2015, those averages are now 27 in math and 19 in reading. So DeSantis, under his administration, education outcomes have gotten worse rather than getting better. Yet he's running around puffing himself up as being some better alternative than Donald Trump.
Wow.
So listen, we're at the end of our first half hour. Why don't we take our break? We'll take our break, and then we'll get back into our subject. And we'll talk about a Time Magazine article titled "No One is Talking About Ron DeSantis and What He's Done in Florida." We'll see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. See you then.
Protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY Buffalo.
All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. Excuse me. Here at Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. Here for this next half hour. We're here with Willie H., who is our engineer and our IT director, 21st Century Citizen. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome everybody to Living for the People with L. Nathan here. We also got a caller on the line.
Well, why don't we grab that call real quick? Let me do that right now.
Alrighty.
Hi, caller. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, great. How are you doing there?
I'm doing fine. I'm in Washington, New York. Washington State.
Oh, you're in Washington State. You are a long way away from us in New York State. You're on the other side of the continent.
Yes. But it is a great experience to have.
Excellent. So, what have we said that's provoked your thought?
So far, I'm just listening. I'll be honest with you. I want to absorb as much as I can before I can even comment. I apologize that I'm not even more helpful, but I believe it's first we have to absorb. We have to listen first before we should speak.
Well, sure. Well, what's on your mind? What is what got your juices going?
Well, right now the weather.
I can't control that. I think about it, but I can't control it.
Understood. But I'm glad that you are working with Willie. I've known Willie for over 30 32 years or 31 years.
Yeah, about yeah. This is
Wow,
my friend Wayne. Yeah.
we thought he was just 13. Man.
You know, I those 13.
Yeah. I've known Willie for that long, and he's been 1,000%. He's been an inspiration to us and our family.
Excellent. You know, it says something. Roger Blackwell used to talk to me about that. He says, Hare, when you meet somebody that's been friends with somebody for 20 or 30 years, you know, that's really important because it takes a lot to be somebody's friend.
It really does. It really does.
When he first told me that's got to be 40 years ago that he told me that, and it's stuck in my mind ever since because that turned out to be true.
Yeah, because you got to go up and down, the ups and downs of each other.
You know, so it says something about you, and it says something about that person that's important in terms of the quality, you know, of those individuals. So,
well,
great to hear.
He introduced me to my wife. So,
okay.
There is going to be a long-standing bond between Willie and I as a result of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you're still married, so that means it worked out. Sometimes that's a route to something else. So we're glad that this one worked out.
I have my rainy days and my sunny days, but yeah, I'm still married. Very much still married.
Yeah. Dion Davis, well, that was her old name, previous name, but she was a neighbor upstairs, and her brother was kind of like, he kind of lived in our house. So, and Dion, we would see Dion also. So she was like a sister also.
Well, you need to have a little rain come into these relationships because that's what makes the fruit grow. You know, if there's no rain, there's no fruit.
you know something? I never looked at it that way. You did say something of value. I appreciate you saying that.
All right. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you again.
All right, Brother Wayne.
Right.
Take care. God bless.
Take care, everyone.
All right. God bless. All right. And so talking about DeSantis, this is an article written by William Kleineck, who's actually writing in Time magazine about why no one is talking about what Ron DeSantis has done in Florida. I find this so... I don't even know what the right descriptive word is for this, but they give Ron DeSantis so much attention. You know, I mean, everything he does, everything he says, they just enlarge it and throw it on the media, and everybody gets to hear it over and over and over again. But you notice that they never talk about what Ron DeSantis has actually done. They talk about his opinions about LGBTQ plus people. Is there an I in there now too?
I don't know. I
think somebody told me it's LGBTQI
I don't
plus,
know,
right? Whatever that is. He tells you what about DeSantis' attitudes about that. He tells you what Ron DeSantis' attitudes are about teaching history that includes the history of African people in terms of not just what happened to African people, but African people's participation in the development of the United States. You know, he gives you his spin on that, called critical race theory, which is not actually critical race theory, but that's a different issue. They tell you all about the things that he's against when he's trying to up the libs, or whatever the right word is. But they never tell you what does Ron DeSantis do? What's the record that shows you that he's somebody that you should trust with leadership?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, did he make more cars? Did he put out more fires?
Well, he became mayor, right? He's mayor?
No, he's the governor.
Oh, governor of Florida.
That's bigger than being a mayor,
right? So
right?
He accomplished that. So he's had to have people behind him.
And that's all he. That's the only thing he can testify to. Is
I guess
he became he became the governor. But a cursory dip into the statistics of Florida's economic well-being reveals that Florida falls short in almost any measure that matters in the lives of citizens. This is quoting now from William Kleineck's article. He states that more than 4 years into the DeSantis governorship, Florida continues to languish towards the bottom of state rankings assessing the quality of health care, school funding, long-term elder care, and other areas of a successful society. He goes on to say that Ron DeSantis is fond of saying that Florida is the place where woke goes to die. That's real cute, right? We're Florida, and we're the place where woke goes to die. But it's also the place where teachers' salaries are among the lowest in the nation. It's also the place where unemployment benefits are stingier than in any other state in the nation.
Don't they get a lot of mass shootings also?
They didn't talk about that, but you're right. A place with a significantly higher number of mass shootings than in other states in the country. A state where wage theft flourishes. Now, why does wage theft flourish? Because your hotel industry is one of your biggest industries, if not the biggest industry in Florida. And you have people that are being made to work 10, 15, 20 overtime hours every week and only get paid their straight pay, don't get paid an overtime rate, or may not get paid for the overtime they worked at all. That's called wage theft, which flourishes with little interference from the DeSantis administration. In 2021, DeSantis campaigned against a successful ballot initiative to raise the state's minimum wage, which has been stuck at $8.65 an hour. That's the leadership of Ron DeSantis. Florida is the ideal haven for privileged Americans who don't want to pay their fair share of taxes. It has no income tax in Florida. I don't know if y'all know that.
That's why people flock.
You got all these people flocking to Florida. You got Ron DeSantis saying, "Yeah, we're the best model of the best state to live in." And so, well, yeah, if you don't pay any taxes to live in your state, and you're not paying people fair wages that are working to serve you, I guess that works good for you if you're the fat cat, right? And that's what DeSantis is all about. Under DeSantis's watch, the Sunshine State has not been a worker's paradise. It has no income tax for individuals, and its corporate tax is only 5.5%. Now, remember, the corporate tax rate for the United States as a whole is what is it now? 21%. Which was a 41% drop over what it used to be when it was 35%.
Wow.
Right? But in Florida, the tax rate for corporations in Florida is only 5.5%. So it would make sense to do business in Florida, right? If you're chasing lower taxes.
Right.
An investigation by the Orlando Sentinel in late 2019 revealed the startling fact. Check this statistic out, Willie. It says that 99% of Florida's companies paid no corporate income tax at all. And this was abetted by tax avoidance schemes and state officials who just don't enforce tax laws in the state of Florida.
Now, hold up. But how do Florida get money from these businesses?
Sales taxes.
Oh, sales taxes. Okay.
But who pays sales taxes?
We do.
when you buy stuff, right?
We do.
So if you're making $30,000 a year and net money after withholdings $25,000 a year, when you're spending for bread, for eggs, for gas, for lights, stuff like that, right? As a percentage of your income, that probably takes up 50% of your income just for that source right there. Right. Add in the cost of your housing, and that's probably 90%, of your income.
Right.
But if you're making $200,000 a year, you're still not spending that much more for eggs and for bacon and whatever, right? So that spending for you may only be 5% of your income. That's the difference. The fat cats are paying this. Everybody's paying a lower tax rate.
Right.
But the tax burden falls mostly on the people who have less money, rather than the people that have more.
Right.
So this pattern shows up in the statistics of many Republican-led states, which on average commit fewer dollars per capita to healthcare, to public education, and other crucial services compared to their blue state counterparts, while making sure that corporations and wealthy individuals are prioritized for tax relief. In Florida, the state's tax revenues come largely through sales and excise taxes, which fall hardest on the poor. A 2018 study by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy found that Florida had the third least equitable tax system in the country. It says that in the state's upside-down tax structure, the poorest 20% of Florida's families paid 12.7% of their income in taxes, while the families whose income was in the top 4% in Florida, they paid a tax rate of 4.5%.
Wow.
And if you were in the top 1% of income in Florida,
Probably
you paid a tax rate.
nothing.
You paid a tax rate of 2.3%.
Yeah. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer.
And the poor get punked over and over and over again, right?
They pay the most.
Pay the most. And the thing is, they wind up voting for people like Ron DeSantis because he hits the race card. You know, you vote for the us's against the thems. And as long as you think the thems are somebody other than you, you'll vote for them.
Right.
But you're just being hustled because the thems are you. You're the ones who are voting for Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, and you're the ones being hustled. Public schools fare no better. Florida ranks below the northern blue states in life expectancy, in rates of cancer deaths, diabetes, fatal overdoses of drugs, teen birth rates, and infant mortality. And in schools, not only did Florida rank 49th in the country for average teacher pay in 2020, but the Education Law Center found in 2021 that the state had the 7th lowest per pupil funding in the country. Education Week. Now, this is one of the richest states in the country, but they have the 7th lowest per capita, per student funding in the country. Looking beyond mere test scores, Florida placed 23rd in the 2021 report on educational achievement by the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Now, I got to turn a little bit towards Trump because we just can't do an hour without talking a little bit about Trump.
You got to talk about Trump.
Right. So Rachel Schilke wrote an article in the Washington Examiner about Trump blasting one of his former aides, Stephanie Grisham, calling her a liar about classified documents. Follow this. Trump, his campaign blasted former Trump White House press secretary Stephanie Grisham for lying about the former president's mishandling of classified documents. Now, Grisham appeared on MSNBC. She said that she had seen Trump display classified materials to people at private meetings at Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. He's displaying classified materials. She's seeing the classified materials that she's not authorized to see. She works for Trump, and she's not cleared to see this stuff. And he's showing this stuff to his fan base at Mar-a-Lago. She says, quote, "I watched him show documents to people at Mar-a-Lago on the dining room patio. So she says, he has no respect for classified information. He never did. You know, listening to that exchange every time, it just makes me so angry. He talked specifically that he should have classified it, but he didn't." And so now Trump pleaded not guilty to 37 counts, several relating to the violation of the Espionage Act on June 13th of this year. The indictment was the result of an almost year-long special counsel investigation. Grisham pointed the Washington Examiner to a Washington Post article from 2017 as proof of possible breaches of defense information. 2017 was the first year of Trump's administration. A member of Trump's Mar-a-Lago club said the former president, who was in office at the time, and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reviewed documents relating to a North Korean missile launch, an incident that Democrats decried as a danger to national security. At the time, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer said, "Oh no classified material was shared at that table." But Grisham said that the lax display of security regarding classified information both then and recently, she said it was concerning to her. She said it's very difficult to get a security clearance to be showing classified material to people who haven't gone through the extreme vetting that you go through to get clearance is a disservice to the country, but it also puts people in danger potentially. She says, I think that, I can't stress enough how being so loose with this stuff, he's potentially putting people in danger. That's his press secretary. Somebody as close as you can get to Trump.
So basically, she thinks he's an idiot. I got to say, though, I can't wait till the Trump movie. I like to know who's going to play Trump, and hopefully Denzel Washington maybe somebody like President Obama or something. But I can't wait to see that movie.
Yeah, well, Obama won't have a featured role in a Trump.
Well, he'll
movie.
he'll
be in it, but he'll be
in it. Yeah.
He'll be a side character,
Yeah.
But I'd like to be somebody, maybe the investigator. Maybe I'd like to be Jack Smith. I'd like to be the one pulling the pages apart, saying, "Do you believe this? He did this. He did this." I'd like to be that person, right? So, but Trump's campaign told the Washington Examiner, that Gresham, she's lying. We won't even dignify. She's a disgruntled, low-level. No, she's the press secretary. But this is how the Trump people, this is how they do it. This is how the Republicans do it, right? She says, I won't even dignify it. She's a disgruntled, low-level former staffer who's trying to salvage her non-existent career by peddling falsehoods. There are consequences to lying. And she better watch out.
Uh-oh. She's in trouble now, though.
In trouble. So, according to the article, Grisham laughed off the campaign's comments in her statements in the Washington Examiner. She, how they do the email, shorthand. So she puts in LOL, laughing out loud. Yeah. She says, I was press secretary and director of communications for the East and West wings of the White House. I'm a low-level, disgruntled employee, right? She says that that's 3 senior positions that I was responsible at the same time. I was doing 3 different jobs at the same time, a first in history. She says, everything I said has already been widely reported, so their veiled threat is nothing more than the usual and tired Trump bullying tactic. Yeah. I know I used it. I used to do it. She admits that she was a part of the Trump behavior.
So she saw it all the time.
The lying, the bullying, the lack of candor, and so on. So that took me to Jack Smith and where we are with the investigation into Trump's behavior. Ariba Shah wrote an article for the Salon magazine talking about the leaked details of Rudy Giuliani's interview, suggests that Jack Smith is targeting Trump's lawyers. Now, this is interesting. Trump has all these lawyers who were a part of the various tactics that Trump was using to effect a coup, to return the presidency back to Donald Trump in 2020 and early 2021. What's happening now is what appears to me to be happening is special counsel Jack Smith is saying, well, if I don't have enough to get Trump, because the proof of what I need to get is in the minds, in the memories of these lawyers, then I'm going to get these lawyers, because these lawyers were doing things that we have proof right now was illegal. Right? They were looking at things they didn't have a right to look at. They were hiding things they didn't have a right to hide. They abetted Trump in committing crimes, against the United States. May have committed espionage, as far as we can tell, right? So the article goes on to say that Jack Smith's team is examining the involvement of former Donald Trump's attorneys and other individuals who plotted to overturn the 2020 election. Prosecutors issued subpoenas focusing on several prominent individuals involved in the post-election efforts. According to the Washington, the Washington Post. The Washington Street Journal. These figures include conspiracy theorist and lawyer Sidney Powell. How this lady got to be a lawyer, I do not know. She seems like a person that's on the spectrum. You know, the folks that they're like a savant in one area, but they're like not quite there in other areas. She seems like one of those people. You know, her eyes kind of drift off into space, you know, when she's talking and whatnot. But anyway, she propagated unsubstantiated allegations of extensive voter fraud. The subpoenas have also sought communications involving Emily Newman, a lawyer who collaborated with Powell, as well as Mike Roman, a Republican operative responsible for overseeing Election Day operations. The federal prosecutors conducted an almost 8-hour interview with Rudy Giuliani. They asked Giuliani about Powell and a December of 2020 meeting that took place in the Oval Office, during which Powell presented a proposal suggesting that the U.S. military should take control of the voting machines in the country. Were you all aware of that? She actually put forward a plan to Donald Trump, which fortunately he didn't act on, to try to get the U.S. military across the country to snatch up all of the voting machines, right, and then recount the votes with under the control and direction of the U.S. military. Yeah, you can imagine what the outcome of that was going to be, and so on. So Jim Jordan, he's actually been trying to shake down the Department of Justice over a $7.3 billion grant program. This was in a website called Two Paragraphs. Writing from his seat on the House Judiciary Committee chairmanship, Jim Jordan is requiring the Research Triangle Institute in North Carolina to provide all information it has pertaining to its relationship with the Department of Justice. According to Jordan's demand for information that was sent to RTI, it says all materials linking the Research Triangle Institute to the Department of Justice grant programs, including the Office of Justice's programs, the Office of Justice programs, the Office of Violence Against Women, and the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. He wants everything on those programs. George's letter demands full fulfillment of this request by July 14th of this year. He, in addition, is asking for a comprehensive list of all current and former Research Triangle Institute International employees, a listing of all of the advisory members of any advisory boards, any board members of the RTI Institute who are currently employed or who were previously employed, and all the employees at the Office of Justice Programs, all the employees of the Office of Violence Against Women, and all employees of the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. He says he needs all of this information to perform his job of oversight, congressional oversight over these departments. How getting the list of current and former employees of Research Triangle Institute would facilitate monitoring and oversight, I have no idea. These are national operations. What would looking at their employment records have to do with your oversight operations? But Jordan explains his request by saying, well, Congress has an important interest in ensuring that taxpayer-funded grants are used in a manner that is consistent with statutory authorization and congressional intent. Well, they are being used that way. You can see what the money is allocated for, what the programs are. You know, if they were doing something that's not in accordance with the enabling legislation, then you could speak to that. But that's not what they're trying to do. What they're really trying to do is to strangle these departments of the federal government in bureaucratic requests. Instead of people doing their jobs, they're busy running around trying to find a memo about this and, you know, a note about that and a photocopy of this and, who worked over here and who left, after 2 weeks of employment. They're going through all of that to tie up the executive leadership of these various departments of government to grind them down to a very low level of productivity. That's what Jim Jordan does.
Mm-hmm.
So you have elected people whose goal is to frustrate the actual governance of the country. That's their goal, is to not govern, and not only to not govern, but to prevent you from being able to govern.
Wow.
That's who you elected when you elected Donald Trump and these Republican sycophants that are in office right now. All these renegades from the Tea Party, and so on, you just got to get rid of these people. They don't intend to help you run your government. They intend to run your government in the ground. That's their goal, because less government is better for them. That's how they see the world. Thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. We look forward to talking to you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We will see you all then. Have a good week.